Hey, what's going on?
What's going on, man? I'd like to welcome. We got Hunterman on the phone today. Again, we're going to do a special on conditioning today. How you doing on this Memorial Day, my brother?
Good. Happy Memorial Day to everybody, including you, Hellcat.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man. Appreciate it, man. I'm out here with the family, man. We just kicking back. But,
Yeah, same here, and eventually we all got to get back to work.
exactly. Yes, sir. So, but it's always a pleasure talking to you, and dogs in general. So, we're gonna start this off. You said you wanted to give a shout out to some friends of yours.
Yeah, I'm going to make this real quick and brief. I want to make a shout out to a couple of people. First, I want to shout out to Mr. Bill Pizza Man and all the people that, my mentors that put me through this whole thing together. But the most important, I want to make a big shout out to my boy Big C. You know, he's one of the greatest competitors I've known in so many years. He's the one that got me back into the dogs and back into the game. And I've never seen many people who have traveled many miles and put mileage on his car to attend everything from barbecues to, dog shows, you name it. He was always out there. I call him like the road warrior. He's out there. He's the original Fast and Furious Kennel. He was my partner at quite a certain amount of time. But to me, he's my brother because we share so much in our hearts with each other. We talk all the time. And, I just want to thank him and give him a big shout out. I love him. He's probably one of the top dogmen I've known in years. And ain't nobody compete as much as that motherfucker. He's the baddest dude around. So a big shout out to Big C. And I'm dedicating this for Big C as well. And you, my brother Hellcat. I love the video with the Keystone Kid, another brother of mine that we share so much together. And let's get it going.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I never met Big C, but shout out to him, man. Shout out to Big C. We got to get Big C up on the platform.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He's top-notch, man.
Yeah, man. So let's get into the pre-keep, man. Let's go pre-keep.
Okay, let's start with the pre-keep. The pre-keep is one of the most misunderstood things in the dog world because a lot of guys today and back in the old days, when they wanted to compete, they just went straight into the keep. But they overlook the pre-keep. The pre-keep is where you determine so many different things with the animal, from what he can and cannot do, to trying to figure out his weight, his digestive system, and how fast he digests his food and not. It tells you a lot of things about his overall health, whether he's handicapped or not, or he has any faults or problems that you might have to recalibrate during the keep. Remember, I always said, you have to do the pre-keep first and study the animal because they pose so many different problems. And even though you've done and complete the pre-keep and wrote it down in black and white, it's always going to be subjected to changes. And then that puts you into, once you figure everything out, design his keep. But let me keep this in mind that even after you study the pre-keep and then you go into the keep, it's still going to be subjected to changes as you're going along with your program because different things happen. The weather temperature changes everything. It could be raining one day. The dog don't want to work out. What he can and cannot do is a big factor with the animal. And most of all, to understand when the animal peaks. And that's what the pre-keep determines. Did he peak on the third week, second week, fourth week? So you can time yourself that when you do a keep, you want to peak out exactly when it's the week before he's going to have an event to show. So you could be right on point with a stronger animal. A lot of guys don't understand that these dogs, sometimes when you do a keep or even a pre-keep, they'll peak out too early. And then what happens is you missed your mark. So the dog's already become stale and stagnant, as we call it, because he's already wasted so much energy and because he peaked out, but he's not able to hold it for a certain amount of time. Some dogs can hold it a week. Some dogs can only hold it 2 or 3 days. So, this is why the pre-keep is so important.
Now, the word peak, could you break that down in layman's terms? Like, what's the meaning of peak when you peak your dog?
Well, the keep, let's start with the pre-keep. The pre-keep, like I said, determines the overall what you study on this particular animal,
right.
And everything you need to know about him from inside and outside, and his abilities and what he can do and what he cannot do. The keep itself becomes the platform of the start of his actual regimen of training, so he can actually compete and be at that perfect point. And what happens a lot of times is that people will do a pre-keep, and then after the pre-keep, weeks later, they want to go and hook the dog or something and, get him in an actual keep, which is no good. I like to give a dog a couple of months off to a year off after the pre-keep, after I study that particular animal. The reason for that is it's almost similar to a keep. The only thing is that you actually are going to put this dog through so much training and so much exercise. You don't want to burn him out. You need his body to recoup. You need him to get better. You need him to heal up. You need him to be more focused. You can't. It's like you work out all week and then you're going to go into another training. It's just too much on the body of the animal.
Right. So the peak part of that is when, could you describe that peak part again? I mean, the peak.
So the keep is actually the keep itself. Right. The keep itself is actually a dialogue of what you studied in the pre-keep. So then you start to get a calendar and you start writing up his schedule with the days off, how much you're going to work him per week in stages, in different stages. How many minutes, whether it's road work, email work, or any other type of work, it's all going to be put in black and white based on what you studied in his pre-keep. So, some dogs will work a meal, some don't, so this animal has to be studied accordingly to understand them. And, even with a keep, you can have keeps from other people, but in reality, it's not the dog that you're working. That's why a lot of times I always say, that I stated that in the previous video that, no matter how many keeps you got, it doesn't mean nothing because it's not that particular animal you're conditioning. That's why it's so important to study the animal. It makes a big difference between winning and losing and hitting your mark on when he peaks out, and it also hits your mark when you get dead on weight. And it goes through so much. It's a lot of different things that happen.
But when you said that, I think you misunderstood me because I wasn't saying keep. I was saying peak. P-E-K.
Okay, the peaking is when a dog reaches a pinnacle of his conditioning that he becomes super strong. So in the beginning, the dog is losing weight. You're burning some of the fat down. You're trying to get him in shape to control his breathing and his blood pressure and everything else. But there comes to a point during the conditioning, which in the beginning becomes harder, but then it comes to a point in his system where whether it's 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, or 6 weeks, where the dog becomes super strong and actually asks for more. He wants to do more. He's got an energy burst. But that energy burst only lasts a certain amount of time. That means he's at his strongest. The question is, which week did it fall on during his peaking, and how long did it last? A lot of guys who just go straight into a keep are never going to know this because they never did a pre-keep. So the pre-keep will determine how long it takes the dog to peak out and be at his best. So if this dog peaked out at 4 weeks, then you know that in 4 weeks' time, this dog will be at his best. So if you're going in a 6 week or 8 week keep, you want to put that 4 weeks at the end of that 8 weeks. You don't want to put the 4 weeks in too early, too hard, because then he's going to peak out, and then you still got another 4 more weeks to go. And guess what? Right. You got a weaker dog.
Right. Because you done peaked out already, and you done missed it, basically, like you were saying.
Yes, and one of the biggest factors, a lot of guys that are listening here, and I want you guys all to pay attention to, because this is, something I'm going to share with you all. A lot of people never ever understand and study the digestion rate of your particular dog. And I explained this to Hellcat, a while back, and I'm going to show you how it goes. A lot of times when people want to compete in an event for a show, and that time comes, let's say it's a Saturday night or whatever day it is or whatever hour it is, it doesn't matter. But when you get to that particular day, a lot of times when they come into the weigh-ins, these dogs, just to see how much the dog weighs, if he's ready, they come in light, and they come in a half a pound light to a pound light, and and then when this animal goes into an event, then they start to lose more body weight. So before I go into this detail, let me start from the beginning. Learning the digestion rate of a dog is something I designed, and I wrote many books and articles about, something I picked up on that was always overlooked. So, every time you feed a dog a particular brand of dog food, each brand of food has a different consistency breakdown time factor, right, which means that every dog food breaks down at a certain amount of time in that particular animal's digestive system. The enzymes in the pancreas have to, develop more to digest the particular food you're feeding. So what happens is a lot of times with these guys is that the dog is not fully digested from the day before or whatever, from last night's feeding or the day before's feeding, and you start to work the dog out, and the dog's body temperature is rising, and it starts to overheat, and it starts cooking in their system. Why? Because the dog still has a lot of food in increments in his pancreas that's not fully digested. So getting back to the beginning of this, I use this as an example. Okay, so if you had a 50-pound dog and you fed him a 1 pound of dog food, he's going to be 51 pounds. Am I correct?
Right.
So then the next day you put the dog away after you feed him up, you weigh him up. Now he's 51 pounds, you write that down. The next day when he empties out, you wait till he takes the first dump, not the urine, but the dump. When he takes his first dump, I want you to write down the time. And then you walk him around for a secondary dump. Excuse me. And then you write down the time and then go into your workout program. Now, if this dog was naturally 50 pounds and 51 pounds with a full belly of food, and he empties out, and then you put him through a workout, now this dog becomes 49 pounds to 49 and a half pounds. Why? Because he worked out. Every time a dog works out, he'll always drop half a pound to a pound of body weight, but it's not a steady drop. It's not an actual weight. What happens is that when the dog exerts energy, the weight fluctuates. So when you feed him and give him water, it goes back to the same weight. The only time it becomes an actual drop in a pound of body weight is usually within a few days to a week. So when you see the weight bounce up and down, it's considered fluctuation weight. Don't panic. The dog is just, that's the way they fluctuate. Now let's get back to the feeding. So you fed the dog the dog was 50 pounds. You fed him 1 pound of dog food and he's 51 pounds. And then you worked him out. He's 49 to 49 and a half pounds, right? Now, you already seen that happen. So now he's doing this every day. You write down the dump from the next day. So here's the trick to this whole method. From last night's feeding at 51 pounds to the next day when he dumped out, count how many hours was that. A lot of guys don't do that. So from the night's feeding to the next day's dump, if you count hours out, I'll give you a ballpark number. If the number's 13, 14, or 15, 16, that's how long it takes to digest the food. Some dogs longer than others, depending on the type of food he's eating. And every dog is different because their metabolism rate is different. So let's go back to the keep. So the pre-keep. So this dog is bouncing around every day. He's averaging anywhere from, 13 to 14 hours, let's say to digest this particular food every day during training, the same routine. And then at the end of the week, you drop that 1 pound of body weight. Okay. So now he's averaging 13 to 14. So this dog, when he's going through this whole entire keep, the biggest mistake many dogmen made in the past, and I see this all the time, is that they never make the weight. They come in light, a hair light, so they don't want to pay the forfeit or whatever it might be. And what happens is you already come in a half a pound to a pound light. So now in 20 to 30 minutes of his endurance contest, he's going to lose another pound or so, or a pound and a half of body weight during the event. So now this dog becomes 2 pounds to 3 pounds, almost 2 pounds or 2.5 pounds to 3 pounds under. Now you handicapped your animal because now he lost his excessive body weight because you didn't know exactly what time to feed him. So here's the trick to this whole thing. So now if you were calibrating, like I said, 13 to 14 hours, if that's what the dog's reading was kind of consistent. Sometimes it can go a little further or less, depends on, the feeding, and you have to make sure you measure the food and everything. So here's the trick. So let's say if your dog was Saturday night and you're going to take your dog out to the shows and in a confirmation show, a weight pull contest, and it starts at 9 o'clock. A lot of guys feeding on the last feeding will be on a Friday. So what time on a Friday? This is where everybody screws up. They don't know exactly. So what they do is they'll feed him early in the day. So now the dog has no food all day. So now he's actually going to be a half a pound light because, the timing of the feeding was not correct. Okay? So if your dog was averaging 13, 14 hours, so from 9 o'clock, count back 13, 14 hours, that will put you on Friday at what time? And that will be exactly the time to feed that dog. That way, when he empties out before the event, not only did you make your weight, but he's 10 times stronger because he's not starved and lagged for being hanging around all day. So now you got to understand your dog's digestion rate in order for you to put him through a performance.
Got you. So how do you know in reference to, rest? Like, how do you know when to rest your dog and while he's going through a keep?
Say that again. Repeat that.
How do you know when to rest your dog when you're putting him through a keep?
How do you know when to rest them? Depending on.
Rest is important. A lot of
Go
people,
ahead.
That's just as important as everything else. Rest, ain't it? Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I agree, but a lot of, the whole thing is this: how much rest does a dog need? I usually like to give him at least 3 days off a week. So not 3 days side by side, but I would split it. So let's say if he works Saturday, Sunday, he'll have Monday off. Then he works Tuesday, Wednesday, he'll have Thursday off. Vice versa. Then you'll have maybe that Sunday or Sunday off or whatever. It depends on what you want to do. But the rest is very important, especially part of this recovery system, because he needs to rehydrate. He needs to recharge his body. The rest is extremely important. You just can't work a dog every day and give him 1 day's rest. That's not enough sufficient rest for an animal.
Right. Now, let's say leading up to an event on a certain day, let's say the event is on a Saturday. Should your dog be worked maybe that Friday and Thursday prior to?
Well, this is one of the biggest mysteries of the keep. A lot of guys used to give a dog a week off before the show.
Right.
I don't. I work them to the middle of the week of Wednesday and then give them Thursday, Friday, Saturday off and then compete. Here's the reason why. When you give a dog a week off and you just hand walking him, the bottom line is he becomes, his ligaments get actually a little more stiffer. He gets lazy. He tends to, you think about it. If you don't work out all week, you're not even going to pay attention. You're going to be not as focused. Your body's not 100% ready. But if you work midway through the keep and you're still giving him your rest periods, the dog should be fine. And not only his ligaments are loose and everything, but he's physically charged and ready to go because he knows that it's time to go to work, not time to go to sleep.
Gotcha.
The funny thing is with these animals is that you can never really, as good as we all are, there are many problems that pose during this event, whether it's the pre-keep or the keep or whatever it is. And no one got a chance to explain to all the dog guys back in the days. There's really no book that'll tell you how to troubleshoot and really explain things. You have to learn hands-on as time goes by. But if you don't take notes and you don't write down stuff and you don't log all the animals' information, you're going to be kind of lost. But even then, even if you log everything, this animal changes as they get older and then, go in different weights and, the animal, as he ages, his metabolism changes, everything else changes. So think about something when you're feeding this animal and he takes a certain amount of time to digest the food. If you add a quarter more, he'll put on a half a pound of body weight. If you remove the quarter, you can actually drop a half a pound of body weight. So the add and subtraction of what you control in and out of your dog dictates the amount of time factor of his digestion rate, and that also alters the time that you have during your workout program.
How about carbs? How much? What kind of fat carb? What about carb loading?
It all depends. Every dog is different. Some dogs require more carbs than fat. Some dogs require more fats than carbs. What time of the year you working this dog? What is his body weight? Is he a 50-pound dog, 60-pound dog, 30-pound dog, even a freaking 25-pound dog? There's going to be a different carb ratio for each and every one. But here's the trick to this. What's his age? If he's going to be a 6, 7, 8-year-old dog, his metabolism is slow, So he might require a little bit more energy than carbs. Where a younger dog that's high-strung, 900 miles an hour, might require more carbs than fat. It all depends on the animals. What is the substitute for carbs, between brown rice, between pastas, between all different, supplements that provide these carbs and different foods that you use. You have to check that and see it's working with your dog. Sometimes when you start trying to initiate new food programs, it also alters and changes the dog's digestive system. So now what happens if you gave him a little bit too much carbs and then his body starts to overheat because the pancreas now has to develop more enzymes to digest that particular extra carbs that he normally didn't have, so to make it an energy source. You know what I mean? And the whole thing is this: you want the dog to get all the carbs and necessary fats and everything else, but you also need him to learn to breathe underwater. And by breathing underwater, you need to open up his arteries and his blood valves and his heart rate, and you need to actually open up all his airways naturally so he'd be able to breathe, so he can go the distance. I never condition for power. I always condition for the distance, for the long haul. like, I don't care how strong another animal might be. The bottom line, if I could take him to the distance, that animal's going to burn himself out, and he's got so much weight behind him and so much exerting so much energy that he ain't going to have nothing in the gas tank, even if he's a better dog. He's not going to have enough.
That's an interesting analogy in reference to not, what far as, not emphasizing power. I never heard that part in reference to conditioning. So, but yeah, I see where it will play a major role in far as the way you just put it out there.
It's like sometimes when we say, why do we weigh the dog? Some guy asks a couple of guys once in a while, say, hey guys, how many times you weigh this dog? He says, I only weigh him twice. That's it. I weigh my dog 4 times a day. Why? Because I want to weigh him when he's full with a full belly of food. I want to weigh him when he's ready, after the workout. I want to weigh him when I feed him and weigh him the next day when I want to make sure. I need to see if there's any physical changes in this dog. And also, you'll see as you're working him out how the tongue is hanging out of his mouth, how he's salivating in his mouth. We discussed tongue, tails of the tongue, where the dog's tongue turns into different situations, right, where you can tell about the different moisture levels and what are they looking for, what are they having trouble with.
Yeah, let's go into that. What are the tails of the tongue, like you told me, the signs, You ever look at a tongue straight up and both sides curl upright? What does that say? You said both sides curl up? Yeah, if you look at the tip of the tongue and both sides, each side of the tongue and the tip curls upright, what is that an indication of? Would that be let me see, dehydration somewhat? Yes, he's actually looking for more moisture. He's looking for more water. He's actually drinking his own saliva because he's dehydrated. He's a little bit he's not has enough fluid in his body, so his body's gasping for more hydration. You ever look at a dog when he sticks out his tongue and it flips to one side of his cheekbone hanging down while he's gasping for air? What is that an indication of? Another sign. Okay, let us know. I'm not familiar. That's a major indication of overheating. His heart rate cannot keep up with his blood temperature. So what happens is he's freaking overheating. He pulls the tongue out of his mouth to the side so he can gulp huge amounts of air down his throat. Right, it makes sense. Right. And the tongue is moved. It's not blocking that passageway. Now, when you get a tongue that's straight out, normal, and he's running a pace, and it's halfway out of his mouth, what is that an indication of? Well, I would assume that's a good sign right there. It's partially a good sign. It indicates that the dog is learning to calibrate and adjust his heart rate temperature, and he's adjusting to your workout program, and he's getting comfortable. Okay, he's not fully there, but he's getting comfortable. Now, when a dog's tongue is in his mouth and he ain't even opening up and he's just full throttle and he's coasting and not even opening his mouth to breathe, what is he telling you? I think that's even a better account of a good. That means you're on point. You're on point with your feeding program and your conditioning. He is so comfortable he can adjust his body temperature. The harder he works out and runs or even competes, he's comfortable to the point where he doesn't need that extra oxygen flow because everything is on point between his feeding, his temperature regulation, and also because he's able to absorb a lot of oxygen into his body system because of the supplements or the food or what you're doing in that particular program. When years ago when Bad Boy competed, and I conditioned him, he was an 8-year-old animal. He went 225, 2 hours and 25 minutes and never opened his mouth to breathe, not even once. And people were astonished and said, oh shit, this dog didn't even gasp for air, didn't even ask for it. He's an old freaking dog. I says, because we got him right. But it took a long time, a lot of studying, and a lot of preparations because he was the type of dog that, once you put him on a program, no matter how easy you did it or how hard you did it, he'll always come into seizures at 2 weeks into it. It was a natural thing. So I had control the seizures and debate whether he should continue or not. And I was able to control the seizures and then lower his body temperature. And I come to realize that because of his age and his slow metabolism, we needed to regulate his oxygen level. So guess what? I opened up his arteries, his valves and everything. And that dog was amazing. Amazing. Now, opening up the arteries, that's increased blood flow. What's one of the things you could do for that? Well, there's many different things. First of all, you cannot take anything with nitrous oxide and any weightlifting formulas and stuff like that because that'll destroy the animal. And it's too much, too fast, and it's fast acting, and what it does is really just kill the dog system.
what you need to do is do it very, very slowly. So we used to use great products like I use Oxydrine, a couple of different stuff, something that it can actually was used for mountain climbers and old people to help them, retain some oxygen level in their system, in their bloodstream. And then also, I would do is give them a little bit of red beets into their food, very little, because if you give too much daily, you can't give daily. You have to actually calibrate it like every other day or whatever. And what it did was, it has to be from a can. Okay. What it did was it allows the blood to circulate at a faster rate. Like I said, one of the biggest events I saw years ago when Grand Champion Cohagen and Champion Debo clashed at many moons ago in the treadmill race,
right.
and I seen that Debo became glassy-eyed, and then at the point where he overheated so severely that he stood in the middle, could barely come across, and just was fixated at the other one, while the other one was running, and he couldn't go out the door. So what happened to this animal? So what happened was that with the poor conditioning that these guys did or whatever, I feel was not right, was that his arteries and his blood vessels and everything actually shrank and shut him down because the body temperature rate was so high, the animal naturally has to shut his system down to cool himself off, and then the heart has to calm down so he can rejuvenate. And then what happened is when this dog cooled down, he woke up and then flew across and took Cohagen right over the wall and nearly, ran him over the treadmill. So what happened there? What happened was that the brain told the body and the heart, to slow down, and his valve shut down. So he could not get out the gate. You know how many dogs I've seen in the past and videos and even studying, working animals that I've seen that could not go across or could not move. And you would swear that they stood the line or quit or whatever, or they just gassed out. And they were ruined to put down or got rid of or whatever the hell it was. The owners were pretty much idiots that didn't understand that the dog did not fail. It was the conditioner that failed.
Right. Got you.
Here's another example. I had a great dog that was given to me by Brown Gravy many years ago. His name was Bad Cowboy. And, he says, hey, I want to get this dog together. I want to try him out and see how he does and keep him exercise and, and take him to a weight pull contest up, in Texas somewhere. So I said, all right. So when I decided to put this dog in a pre-keep, I come to find out that, after 15 minutes into it, he would pass out and faint. And I scratched my head and I said, oh, shit. So I got me and Mr. Bill, and a lot of these, great ones that me and Mr. Bill, we analyzed it, we figured something out. Come to find out that this dog suffered a handicap internally, which was his tracheal and his windpipe was no bigger than a dime. So he was a healthy animal overall, but because his tracheal was too small, he couldn't get enough oxygen into his system.
Right.
So after careful planning, I told the guy, I told Gravy, I says, listen, I'll do him, get him in shape, but you have to promise me that after this, he can never, go into an outing anymore. And, he agreed. I says, because he's handicapped and I don't think anybody can get him out there like that. So after me and Bill sat down and we studied and we analyzed and we set up a program, make a long story short, he succeeded his event. He won and, he went up, I think was over the hour mark with no problem. But, fortunately, that was the end of it. You have to have respect for the animal. If you don't have respect for the animal and understand that they can only be pushed so far and their abilities are always limited, just the problem is with today's society with the dogman, their ego gets the best of them.
Right. And speaking of dogman, you brought up another, unsung, not really a household name, but put in a lot of work from back in the days with the dog Brown Gravy. That's a good friend of yours, huh? Hello?
Yep.
Yo.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. We got
So
disconnected.
be back. But I was just saying, speaking of the Dogman, you brought up another one of the unsung ones that's not a household name that's been putting his work in for a long time back in the days. Brown Gravy.
Yeah, he's a great friend of mine. He bred some great dogs, and he put a lot of trust into me to shape some of his animals. Same thing like a lot of other people. So I put my heart into it.
Right,
But
right.
we always have this one understanding that if a dog is into a certain situation, the animal's overall health and the responsibility of their, everything about them falls in the hands of a decision that we have to make. And once it's in my hands, the decision is made, it has to be said. Because if I'm going to put in the time, the heart, and the effort, and everything I possibly can do, I want what's best for this animal, and I want him to live a healthy life, a happy life, and do the right thing.
Now those tracheal issues in reference to the dogs, do you think that's inherited?
Sometimes it's inherited because of a lot of it goes back into some of the inbreeding, sometimes too close brother and sister breedings, and it gets throwbacks. You can get throwbacks of what the genetics are, but sometimes you also get throwbacks of all the problems that may face. Sometimes the legs get all altered, or sometimes they come undershot, or they have a trait that's, from way back when it's pulled up front. So you get the good and the bad with certain things, so you have to be very careful. That's why when we discuss the breeding and double breeding and outcrossing, you have to sometimes go out and then come back in.
And that tracheal issue is in reference to the breathing. That's where a lot of them bullies and all of that stuff, you hear them breathing.
I think the tracheal, see, the dog had a long snout and a long face, so it wasn't a nose problem. Right. The tracheal problem was a throat problem. It was just something that this pup, when he was a pup, he was born with. His brothers and sisters did not have that. He was the only individual animal that had this problem.
Oh, okay. And you said his tracheal tract was kind of small? Where he couldn't
his windpipe coming down his throat and everything was kind of small.
Right, right.
It's crazy, but, it's like people. We come sometimes, no matter what, we'll have a few with autism and handicap issues, and you know how it is.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, man. But in reference to the, so when you're saying the pre-keep, right? Let's say you get an animal. Now, the pre-keep, you're going to just do, because like I said, the pre-keep should just, from me speaking to you, and yet the way you analyze it, it's basically just studying the animal. Now, should that go for just a young animal when you're starting them out, or are you still studying them? Maybe if he's a 3, it's the same thing with but they still changing as they growing. So
well, getting to that point, you can never consider the young animal the same as an older animal. Every dog is an individual animal. So just because that one dog, you can't do a pre-keep when he's a pup. Because by the time he's a 2, 3, 4-year-old, his body has changed. Right. You need to study this dog when he's fully mature. When he's a pup and he's young, he's just under development. So what you can teach him as a pup is fine. What you can condition him into learning different things, that's fine. But if you need to understand him, you're going to have to wait till he's 100% mature and ready.
Right. I get that part, but I'm saying in reference to once you figure that out on that particular dog, once he's mature, once you say he's ready, and you pre-keep him, should a pre-keep come every time after that? A
pre-keep should always be done to any dog you condition, even if it's the same animal, because I'm going to be very honest with you. I can pre-keep a dog and then go through a keep and then have success, and then another year, 2 years later, he changes.
Right,
I can't go by the old keep and his old pre-keep because he's definitely going to change. Every keep and pre-keep that I have on the same individual animal, if the animal went out 2 or 3 or 4 times, every keep was different. Every pre-keep was different.
But
it seems like a lot of work for many, but if you're really dedicated into conditioning, you need to do this. And you need to put it in black and white because you're going to forget it.
As you talking, I'm comparing it almost like when you go to the doctor, they got your charts. So every time they're going to check it, every time you go. They're not going to say, oh, well, your blood pressure was, this 6 months ago, so we're going to base everything off of that. They're going to check it from 6 months to a year, 2 years, 5 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, the same thing like diabetes and everything. Dogs go through the same situation. They got high blood pressure. They have a lot of elements. They have problems with their system. And sometimes it's not even that. It could be the food. Or what about the supplement intake? You know, if too much supplements and he goes into catabolism and then he overheats because he's he can't digest a certain supplements and he's pissing it out and his
Right.
kidneys are starting to turn red a little bit when he urinates because he's overloaded with too much supplements or too much stress from the workout. I mean, you have to pay attention to this because sometimes you might have to change the food. You think you got, the funny thing about conditioning dogs, and I make this straight out with everybody listening, just when you think you got it right, the dog proves you wrong. That's why you got to stay on top of it and pay attention to every little detail if you really want to understand the animal.
Right. Understanding the animal.
That's the key factor because,
Right.
I'd be honest with you, I don't want to sell myself short. I don't want to cheat the animal, and I'm not taking shortcuts. If I'm going to sit down and take shortcuts, there's no reason for me to do it.
Right. Makes a whole lot of sense. Man. Well,
The word conditioning means to go slow. You don't have to go 900 miles an hour. It means to condition the body to go through each stages and each level of resistance, force, and adjustments and of his own body and his temperature, everything that goes along with it, and learning to relax himself because you want this animal to be able to, it's like a car, like a race car, you can't have too much motor if you ain't got a tranny, and if you can't have too much tranny if you ain't got a rear. It has to go simultaneously hand in hand. This is why it's so important. When it comes to working these dogs out, there's 1,000 things we can go, but we could be here till tomorrow talking about it. But this is some of the most important things you need to address to all the dogmen. If you have to write everything down and then backtrack and figure out, so what if something was wrong? You can go back in the calendar, backtrack, find out what was the cause of the problem, eliminate it, fix it, adjust it, and calibrate it.
So let's break down the different wheels of a treadmill, the size wheels on the treadmill. Well,
we discussed that once before. The length of the treadmill, the different lengths, 5 foot, 6 foot. Why is it longer? Because there's different stride levels and the length of the animal. You got some dogs that have short legs and short, broad bodies, so they don't need that longer resist. You understand? They could use a shorter mill and get the same purpose. But some dogs are rangier that when they start to go, their stride is so much longer. You might get another 2 or 3 or 4 rotations more on his stride because he's kicking out further. So you might need a longer mill because his body's gonna stretch out longer. So it's different. And same thing like when you calibrate the resistance of the mill. Some mills have what we call brakes. It can adjust the tensions and the resistance.
Yeah, I remember the.
And the wheel rotation, if you look at the front wheel, some of them are 12-inch wheel, 11-inch wheel, 13 or 14-inch wheel. Why was the wheel expanded longer and bigger on some of these mills? Because the rotation, it gives you a certain amount of rotation for every spin. Some mills, you spin them once and you'll get 2 or 3 rotations. Some of them will give you 5 or 6 rotations. Some of them will only give you 1 rotation. That's the change of resistance.
Right. And what about carpet mills versus the slat mills?
Carpet mill is equivalent to mountain climbing. It's a lot harder. 5 minutes on a carpet mill equals to almost a mile of heavy, intense road work. You're talking about going on an incline, and he has to force the bottom of his feet on the carpet mill. That puts a lot of tension on his ligaments and stuff like that. It's really harder on a dog. That's great for weight pullers. That's great for a dog that has a lot of drive. If he's like when they used to say back in the day, styles. If you get a dog that's a front end dog that likes to work in the front end, he needs that drive and that pull power. So that might be great for him. But he's going to need to push his weight around. Where some dogs need the endurance, that an endurance animal, that'll be just a waste of time.
So that's an anaerobic versus aerobic. So the anaerobic,
yes,
for the the muscles.
But it depends. It depends on sometimes you don't have the luxury of having these things, these equipment, So sometimes a simple road work and using your terrain is the most important thing. Looking at the road, the contours of the road. If the road is left-handed, is upright on the left side, and your dog is weaker on his left side, you wouldn't want the right side to be higher than the left, so that he puts more tension on the left side and straightens up his legs on the left side, because that'll be his weakest side. Now, if he's stronger, let's say if he's vice versa, if he's stronger if he's a left-handed dog and he's stronger, then you want to work the right side of him on the parallel of the incline of the road work. Uphills, downhills, grass compared to that of asphalt, blacktop, concrete, or whatever. It has a lot of difference in impact on the feet and how much you can do. I like to look at the terrain and utilize my terrain to condition different parts of that body. Same thing as working in the beach in the sand, where the feet sink in and he starts to turn his feet in the sand. There's no pivot control. So he has no choice but to go with whatever the direction of the sand takes him. So what happens is he adjusts and learns to utilize some of the muscles that he never uses in his joints. And that's what makes a strong front end dog, a strong legged dog, because he's able to do that, especially if you got a dog with bad feet. That's the best place to work him, is in the beach in the sand.
Right. That makes sense. Definitely makes a lot of sense.
In conditioning and pre-keeping, the whole logic to it all is that we all don't have the actual answers to everything, but if you study these animals, you tend to learn a lot. And, every time you condition a dog, no matter what dog is, you learn something from that animal. Can't overlook things and be lazy and say, yeah, I got it. Yeah, we'll do it like this and we'll do it like that. And then if someone answers you have a problem and you can't utilize to fix that problem and understand it, it's because you never wrote it down. You never took the time to study the animal. And this is the difference between winning and losing and the big boys and the boy toys. You understand?
Right.
You're talking about some of the great dogmen in history. You know what it's like to even compete or compare you to get in there with some of these greats? You got to be ready. But you know what? The greatest battle wasn't with the adversary. It was with the animal to get 110% for them. You cheat the dog, you cheat yourself.
Right. Definite. Well, I know my listeners is definitely enjoying this, listening to you, because we definitely developed a good following off our last interview.
And I appreciate it, and I thank you all. And like I said, it's just a pleasure just to be on here just to talk and be honest and be straight up forward about these animals. I hope that we can make a difference in people's overall thinking of how animals should be taken care of and how they should be treated, and with respect and compassion. And this is why we do what we do.
Right.
It's about history.
Definite, man. I gotta agree with you 100% on that, man.
And you, Hellcat, man, I really appreciate everything you've done. I mean, your dedication to these dogs throughout the years. You put a lot of time in there, and you brought out these videos. You've introduced more out there for everybody to enjoy. You, Schoolboy, and a host of others.
Yeah, that means a lot coming from you. And shout out to Schoolboy, Richard Garcia. Gotta get
that's my boy. He's the king of kings right now. He's the man.
Yeah, definitely Schoolboy.
Yeah, and I shout out to all you dogmen out there, because you guys are the future, and right. I want you guys to do the best you can. If you ever have a problem, you can always reach out and then send me a PM, me a question. I can help you. I'm not going to know all the answers, but I will try and never turn my back on anybody.
Is there a way people can reach out to you? Maybe it's through the comments, or?
You could probably reach out on Facebook if you want to reach out on Facebook, or you could just simply get in touch with you and you could PM me and I can send you the info to them or whatever you want to do.
Because I have some people shout me out how to get in touch with you, so like I said,
Well, you can go through Facebook or go to Schoolboy Lives in his channel and his page, and you can reach out to me or pop me a question. Cool, you can look under Hunterman, my name is up there, William Cabero, whatever you want to do. I mean, I don't have animals no more, but I would love to help, anybody do what's right for the animal. Much respect to you all. Just do me a favor. Don't cheat the animal. Don't waste my time. I do anything to see you smile and have success and teach you everything that is need to know before all is lost, because like history, if we don't acknowledge history and remember and spend time with the old timers, and everything gets lost, it's going to be lost in time and it's going to be all forgotten.
And one key thing I've got to bring up, because you bring up all of this, and it's done, like you said, with passion. There's no fees in charge with this. So it's important that, people pay attention and take heed and take advantage of these services that's being put forth by what I must say right now is the legendary Hunterman, because you come down from a legend. So, hey, I got to add that tag to your name, yo.
Well, I'm no legend. You guys are the legends. I'm just an average guy who loves to do what I do.
Well, most of the legends, most of the real legends like to play down their role, but you ain't going to get away with that from me, buddy. You a legend, bro.
And let me say this last thing before we go.
Yeah.
There was an old saying, and you probably guys might have missed it on the last video. Many years ago, when I bumped with Bill, and we were, got together, we were going to a birthday party. His wife, we were getting ready to go out the door, and his wife says she wanted to speak to me for a second while Bill goes to warm up the car. So I said, "What's up?" She says, "The American Pit Bull Terrier has the hardest life of all dogs?" And I says, "Yeah." She goes, "What's the most important thing you should always know?" And I turned around and I looked at her in her eyes and I said, "Compassion." She goes, "And you're right. That's right. That's what I want to hear. Now get your asses out there and go kick some ass."
Yeah, I
and
love that story, man.
we did, and the rest is history.
Yep.
But the whole thing is love, respect, and, cherish this breed before it's all gone,
Yep.
Well, you guys have a good night. Happy Memorial Day to you all, and to all the veterans out there, God bless you. Thank you for serving.
And thanks for taking the time out on this Memorial Day. I know you with your family and everything, and I appreciate it, and I know my listeners appreciated it. And we got
God bless you all, man. I'm happy to be here.
The Hunterman. Hey.
Hunterman and Hellcat. Two crazy old people.
The two H's.
And my boy Big C, just a shout out to you. I love you, brother. Thank you for everything you've done. You are the man.
All right, man. Well, thanks again, Hunterman. Thanks for blessing my page, man. And I'll get back with you, bro.
Talk to you later. Enjoy, guys.
Yes, sir.
Good night.